why were there so many composers in the 19th century drawn to Shakespeare? A mass of compositions exist, from lieder and art song to opera and symphony, that were produced in the Romantic era based on his works. The only thing is, Shakespeare's works weren't music, and he obviously wasn't a composer, but a literary figure, a poet, linguist, and playwright. So, what would inspire those composers to create music from his dramatic works? Does Shakespeare possess some kind of inherent musicality, even just in the theatrical context? I asked a few theater professionals, scholars, instructors, and actors to determine whether or not, and if so, how, Shakespeare and music are so intrinsically related. If music played a role historically in productions, and what factors, in their opinion, might have influenced composers to pursue his works as their choice of subject matter in their music.
My name is David Mann.
My name is Matthew Belopavlovich, and I'm the lead theater teacher at the Patel Conservatory.
I'm Monica Cross. I am the production manager and technical director at New College of Florida.
What aspects of Shakespeare in performance stand out to you?
One of the biggest things in Shakespeare that stands out to me when I'm watching a show, and what I think engages with all audiences, would be the literal gesture, or the gesture that's used by a character, and the physical connection the character has. I think that when an audience maybe doesn't understand a word, their gestural language can communicate that.
The first thing that I look for is the language.
As an actor, you always take notice of the language and every different kind of ism. There is not a huge amount of what we call subtext. With Shakespeare, most of what is being thought is being said. It requires depth of feeling and expression and all that kind of stuff.
What comes to mind when you think of Shakespeare and music? Are you familiar with any musical works based on his plays?
Most of the time that I have spent doing Shakespeare has been intrinsically linked to music.
The phrasing and the iambic pentameter and how he structured his sonnets and the beauty of that has a musicality to it.
There's a number of different things. Shakespeare, almost all of Shakespeare's plays had music in them.
There would have been musicians in the gallery. There would be musical interludes, and there would be tumbling.
Music figures massively just within Shakespeare itself.
Music was very much an inviting sort of device for the audience, but also it was another way to communicate what was being said. In the way I was speaking about physicality, too, music can help us understand, just like in movies.
And then, of course, there's the number of different ways that it's been created, whether in operas or in symphonies, because the emotion is so huge, what is happening is so huge that it lends itself, of course, massively to opera.
I actually was just sent a section of Lady M's, her sleepwalking section from an opera. It's fascinating that it has been adapted, but I think that that's part of the pervasiveness of Shakespeare's work.
Why would composers find his work so compelling?
Shakespeare found a way to sometimes tell the truth. So we're seeing these stories that were all-encompassing. People wanted a piece of that and enjoyed what had been presented by him and wanted to become a part of that artistic movement.
Basically, from the time that Shakespeare was even writing, playwrights, poets, authors, musicians, composers began saying, okay, that's something that we want to respond to.
A prominent Shakespeare critic called Harold Bloom wrote a book called Shakespeare and the Invention of the Human, in which he argued that Shakespeare was kind of largely responsible for our sense of what it is to be human today. These characters who are larger than life, in other words, they exist outside of the book that they were written for, and that's, of course, Hamlet, Ophelia, Lear. To this day, they continue to bring out the imagination of people. The operas, I think, and the music, the symphonies speak for themselves. They're largely a retelling of the particular thing through that artistic prism. There is some thought that actually in the Victorian era, which we are talking about in terms of romantic, right, that it actually went away from some of what people now think of as a more authentic experience of Shakespeare.
The Romanticists loved Shakespeare in such a way that they were like, we've got to make him look like us. They enjoyed his work, and then they said, okay, he's got to be one of us. He can't be who he was.
There has since been, I don't know whether an opera or not, but there has since been an interest in a more guttural, a more direct, an approach in which you have to fight to be able to get people's attention.
See extended interviews at the links below.